Hello everybody, welcome back to the Tokyo FinTech podcast. Today we welcome Ganesh Iyer, who's the CEO and founder of Dotin. We met initially about a year ago when Dotin was part of the Plug and Play batch here in Japan. Dotin performs a personality profile assessment based on color schemes and contrast that all comes out of science developed initially in Japan in the mid-80s. In the description for this podcast, you'll find the link to the assessment. You can perform it yourself free of charge. It's a 1-minute exercise and you'll be surprised how accurate the results are. But now let's get to the conversation with Ganesh. So you're the founder and CEO of Dotin, and you're using psychology, emotional intelligence, analytics to derive personality profiles.
That is correct. We are building the next generation recommendation engine in terms of understanding who you are, but predicting more accurately what are the outcomes that would suit your choice and your personality. So that if I present those outcomes, I remove all the clutter, get you focused on the outcome, help you make the decision faster, get you more connected with the product, you're happy, the enterprise remains happy in terms of having a loyal and dedicated customer. It's a win-win across the table. Yeah, we've been in the business for about 6.5 years now. We did our R&D for 4 years, solid 4 years, flying under the radar, did not go out and sell actively. End of 2017, early 2018 is when we started selling.
And so why is the science so complex for the layperson? Why does it take so much time to develop the algorithms?
For us, the complexity started with the human, understanding humans. Even after we spent 4 years where we had maybe 69 countries participating in building the base model, a lot of ethnicities, a lot of equal division of male and female, ages between 18 to 90. I strongly feel we are barely scratching the surface in understanding humans as a whole. And the closest analogy I can give you is you have these two Voyagers out in the interstellar, and the only thing that they have is two probes that are going in one direction. They have a range of 45 degrees, but it's covering a very minuscule path that it is going into the interstellar space. That's exactly what we are doing. We are in this journey, long haul. We are trying to understand humans, extremely complex. And even though we have probes in place, we kind of have some understanding of the patterns. I don't think we have a whole understanding yet. Understanding humans takes a while. There are not too many tools that can help us validate. So we have to even build the tools to validate what we are seeing as a part of the patterns and make sure that all those patterns are having some good accuracy, helping the end users from the outcomes perspective.
And so just before this conversation, I went to your website and did the latest test, and it literally takes a minute. You don't get more than a minute to pick color patterns. You need to pick 10 that resonate with you, and then you get profile analysis. It's quite amazing how that works. And as you say, different cultures, different background have a different affinity to brighter colors, dimmer colors, etc. So when you build this model at a global scale, you need to take care of all these cultural differences.
Absolutely. Actually, the science behind this stems back to 1960 when there was no concept of digital signage then, right? The only way a marketer could connect a brand to the audience was through poster banners, big poster banners. And within the poster banners, they involved some clinical psychologists and they figured out that the biggest impact of a human looking at the poster and connecting with the brand beyond the messaging was colors. And they created Color Emotion Guide. It's a theme that is used by branding guys. It's one of their Bibles. They use day in and day out, making sure that they understand what kind of color should be used to resonate certain themes to the audience. 1985, this was in Japan. 1985, Nippon Research, after 10 years of research, they started back in 1975. They went till 1985. They published a book by Kobayashi-san, which basically is still considered as a Bible within ad agencies, within fashion industry, where they say it's not one colors, but colors and contrast. If you club them together, you can truly understand not only a personality, but we can also understand what personality may resonate with certain colors and contrast, purely for marketing. So if I want to sell a product to a person who's romantic in nature, they had prescribed these are the colors and contrast you should consider. When we stumbled on the study, this was back in 2014, we started more as a traditional approach of understanding humans, where we ask you a bunch of questions, you think and give me an answer. And what we realized is that people change the context of answers based on the outcomes. Every time I probe you you today, you may be thinking, I need to find the best job, so I need to see myself as entrepreneur. I want to see myself as a leader. Maybe a month from now, when you get the job, you want to basically show yourself as a team person. So you will share all the insights with respect to that outcome in mind. So every time when I probe you, your personality is always driven by need, which never reflects the true self of who you are. The colors actually bring out your unbiased assessment, close to 80%. There are scientific research that have been conducted. So we took that as a base to then extrapolate. It took us 4 years where we found the context of colors and contrast having an insight in terms of who you are. The aspect of what you pick as words in describing your task has also a big part of your personality. We are adding more probes, which primarily would include how you basically speak, the videos that you watch, the aspect of how you move, how you use the device, which is how you move the mouse, how you click, how much pressure you apply on the laptop as a big part of your personality. And also aspect of human pulse, which also brings out your mood. Multiple variations to converge into who you are so that we can come back with tangible outcomes.
We've all done these psychological assessments. We get 50 questions and we try to figure out, is question 2 and question 47 linked? So I need to have a similar response. And unless you're somewhat versed in the science, colors are anonymous. You can't really figure out what this means. Even if I could game the system because I have some knowledge, I think what you did 1 year ago is you were taking my social media feeds, which are an honest representation of what we're doing, right? The type of photos that you post and the colors in those, on the spot you created that profile.
We have added more IP to it as we speak, as the gallery images is one of the IP that we have added. We have already pre-profiled 340 million passive candidates in our database who can be connected to the right opportunities as soon as the opportunities come up from the enterprise perspective, so that we help the talent as well as the enterprise find the right person coming into the job.
What I found is clearly a little bit of revenue generation. For a really small fee, I can download that assessment, and you suggest actually it might be a good idea if you apply for a job to include it in your application, because you're shorten the whole process, you're opening yourself up completely as to who you are, something that a resume can never express.
Absolutely. I think one of the key aspects that we have noticed, and this is something that came out as a feedback from the users using the service, is we have seen people struggle in terms of highlighting their strengths. And it's very important to sometimes help them in the process as they get into a job. What are the key strengths that they bring to the table? Especially the soft skill strengths are very hard to decipher unless until you pay close attention to it. And that's where we probably thought, as we give the test for free, you can look at the test for free. People were asking, and especially with the COVID-19 hitting, everyone is asking, can we get some kind of cover letter? Can we get some kind of reports? And we just created a simple report and a cover letter that can be downloaded, which would help you to either keep yourself ahead of everyone in the stack as somebody is looking at your profile, or as you're getting into the interview process, just hand it over to the hiring manager. That would make the aspect of them looking at you with a lot deeper sense, and they would see how prepared you are for that interview process. Right. So that's what we're trying to do. How can we help the end users, which is the talent looking for the job?
Many people who listen to that maybe think, oh, my data, I need to protect my data. Now, the interesting thing about the pictures that you show in the test as well, they are highly pixelated. So the colors that resonate, but you can't recognize the picture. So you don't need the details and you don't need to see the face or the car or the house where somebody lives. You're taking it one level above that in terms of the detail. And so you guarantee privacy through the approach that you're taking.
Absolutely. And that's a very good point. I think the key part here is we have to make sure that in human resources, in general, is a very compliant driven industry. People are very careful in sharing any social information. People are even very careful in sharing any images which has any face contours, because they are worrying that somebody may judge them. And as a part of bringing that net neutrality is where the approach is coming from. Not only you as a talent not able to understand what the outcomes are, also the enterprise may not be able to decipher based on the colors and contrast, because it took us 4 years to build 1560 color patterns that resonates with 150 different personality types. So it becomes impossible task for a human to comprehend what patterns would resonate to what personality. And if they are able to do that, I think they don't need the test. You should just hire them in a heartbeat.
The human element is still not taken out there, right? So you're providing supporting information, but clearly there's an emotional element still to that. So you mentioned COVID-19 and you read all these reports and there are thousands of webinars, literally what the world will be after COVID-19. So allegedly everything will be completely different and this is a pivotal point in humankind and how we interact with each other. Some of that will probably happen quickly, some of that will take longer time, but also in Japan, as you know, is very paper-based and you've got the seal, you've got the hanko that you need to put on documents. It seems to be people getting their mind around more digitization of processes, which clearly should be playing into your hand and what you're offering. So what is your perspective on how we will do things differently post this crisis?
I think the key part to me is humans in general, technology is evolving and humans evolve with the technology as long as the technology helps them to get to the end goal. When radios came in, they started putting ads in the radio. Everyone felt because that was the way for families to come together when radio came in. Families love to be part of 9 o'clock session, listen through some of these programs that are happening. As soon as they started introducing ads, that was the first time they introduced the ad. Everyone felt this was an intrusion into their privacy because it was a family time. They didn't know why these ads are being shown versus they're just here to listen through some of the programs, right? But they got used to it. And around television, same concept. They went through the programs, ads came and they felt, oh, this is a intrusion of my privacy. Why is it that I'm being bombarded with something I don't want without my consensus? People then got used to it. Fast forward into internet age where you had Facebooks of the world, right? Everyone loved to get into internet. Everyone loved to be online. Everyone wanted to connect and share some of the insights through these social platforms. All of a sudden, their data becomes public and everyone feels, oh, this is now a privacy intrusion. I don't want this to happen. And I think this is more of an awareness, more of mind shift in terms of humans to see the benefits of technology versus not using the technology, right? And when the benefits overcome any of the shortcomings, automatically people move into that without any issues. And that's exactly what is happening with the COVID-19. If you ask me who's a key driving factor in terms of making the digital transformation, real digital transformation in an enterprise, I wouldn't say it's a CEO. I wouldn't say it's a CDO, Chief Digital Officer. I would say it's COVID-19 because just in March, there was a 90% increase in applications that are virtually connecting people. If you look at some of the statistics, Microsoft said 500% usage increase just in China, just in the month of Jan. Zoom had an increase from 10 million to, I believe, 200 million in just in the month of March. All of these are forced, no doubt, but I think this is accelerating the process in a really big way. And as we come out of this, I think people will start realizing. I was talking to the CEO of JobBite, his name is Dan Finnegan. As we were discussing, I think we came to a common conclusion that people will be forced to give out some of the data because if you don't do that, it's a matter of death or life. Do you worry about privacy or do you worry about sharing the data with the doctor online so that you can get the medicine and get over any cure that you are trying to do? And this is going to happen more and more. And people will realize that they have to basically understand what's in for them at a bigger scale. It may be impossible to get everything, but what's the best to get most versus none. So this is going to drastically change the way humans connect, collaborate, and even communicate with each other. And one of the biggest area I feel would be impacted first would be healthcare in a very big way, where I think people will now be a lot more comfortable sharing their data online versus worrying about where the data is stored, which other doctor is looking at it. Similarly, human resources is one more area which is going to impact in a big way. I think now we are swung ourselves to the other side of the pendulum where everyone is working virtually. I think we will hit some hybrid model where people will now be taking an uncomfortable stance where they would know at least 20 to 25% of their workforce want to work from home. Previously, as the manager said, hey, you can't work from home because the productivity decreases. Now they have 2 months of data to prove that it's probably the same or probably increased. So people will come back and say, why do I need to come to the office? Companies have to adjust themselves to this new normal. And as a part of doing that transformation, all these tools can tremendously help in transforming the company in a big way. It's going to be an uncomfortable shift, but I think it's going to be helpful for all of us.
I agree. In these two extremes, the pre-crisis, maybe more presence culture still versus now fully digital. In the end, once we come out of this, it's all about the flexibility. It's enough people who say, I want my kitchen table back for the factory, I want to work there. But you might want to do this 1 or 2 days a week, and then the other days you want to go in the office or you see clients, etc. So we need to have the infrastructure that's flexible to adapt to different working styles across the whole spectrum. And for me, lots of the debate is always at the extremes, which seems to be where we are today. today on many topics, and the middle road of being a medium flexibility is lacking in many aspects.
That's very true, because I think there's one more data point. Tata Consulting Service came out with an article saying that they are pledging, as they're coming out of this COVID-19, they're already making strides towards how do you adapt themselves into this new normal. And they have made a pledge to have 25% of their workforce working from home, which would also increase 25% of their productivity. They call it 25 by 25. It's again based on some of the data that they have seen, they have heard from the customers, and just looking at how this may really help in accelerating the productivity if you work from home.
Getting back to the use cases, so we covered HR to some extent, where you're using this to get a profile and assess candidates, and you also assess the candidates' fit versus the other team members, right? So it's not necessarily only in isolation, it's also in the context of the team that would be initially hired. And what are other use cases for your technology?
So it's all about understanding humans. From HR industry perspective, we help in sourcing. We can broaden your sourcing, 340 million passive candidates. Just give me a job title description. I can give you a prioritized list of candidates. I can help you in onboarding process. The tool basically can identify what kind of incentive programs may work for you, training wise, compensation wise, employee engagement wise, so that the companies can start catering some of their programs to that specific individual's needs. We can also look for, if this person joining the team, what would be the team's synergy and where the potential weak points are, so that the managers can take informed decision. But we have also started seeing more companies as we went into this COVID. It's pretty interesting. Before COVID, there were a lot of companies looking at how do you streamline their hiring, because that's almost 52% of their pain point. Now there is a dramatic shift in the ecosystem where the employers want to know more about their employees, and they want to use the same technology to find if there is a new business line that is coming up, how do I identify this person? This employee can be well suited for this opportunity. How do I know this employee can work from home? Does this person's personality match those styles? As this person is moved into that role, what are the alternate training curriculum that I should look for so that it mitigates a gap in real time? And that's one of the use cases that came out of Learn at Forbes, where you can just go online. Learn at Forbes is one of the customers that basically competes with Udacity and Coursera. You go online, take the color test, upload your resume, and for the job that you're applying, we can look into that training curriculum and show the ones which would fulfill the gaps in real time, so that you're more prepared for the job as an employee or as a candidate, right? That's also one of the use case employers are looking at. And the last one is also, how do you find the next rising star within the employee base? That's also top of mind for many managers. So all of these that can help both the candidates or the talent as well as the employers. Those are the use cases that are coming up on the HR side. On the CPG side, which is the consumer product goods perspective, I think quite a bit of interest in terms of identifying what are the products that you can buy. Say if you're coming in for the first time within the website, there is no data point that correlates to who you are. How do I know what's your personality? What really matters to you? And if you look at the statistics, you need to have at least 50 to 100,000 data points with respect to your actions before we can take any insights in terms of what is your next course of action. And there are only few companies that can do that. Probably Facebook can do that. Amazon can do that pretty well. Any companies that have many touch points can build a correlation. What we bring to the table is, even without that, knowing your personality, we can have up to 80% of accuracy in terms of predicting what are the products that would resonate for you, what colors may resonate for you, what offers may resonate for you, how should be the email campaign be structured so that you can visualize, see, and take actions, and also change your packaging when you're basically going into a demography, more on the CPG side.
In the financial service context, have you had discussions, for example, with insurance companies? Because you would think that if you can define that somebody is a more aggressive type, clearly it would be a higher risk for motor insurance, for example, aggressive drivers, higher premium. All these might be factors that people could consider, right? Are you honest? Do you commit insurance fraud? At least it's supplementary data that could be very valuable.
Right now, we are not focusing in that area, but there are customers who had reached out to us to do the similar aspect. Can this be additional data source that can help in terms of modeling with respect to risk associated to any loans that are given to that individual? The answer is resounding yes. Just what you need from that perspective perspective is you also need actual data, which includes how much revenue or how much annual income you have, any other data set in terms of age, the aspect of where you live. That also plays in part in terms of predicting, along with your personality, no doubt. That can add one more layer. So there are companies who have reached out to us. They are trying this process as we speak. But the bigger focus on the insurance side actually is on the human resource, where there are insurance companies that have hired frontline sales and credit officers, or the insurance officers who sell the insurance, right? And they have seen people who got hired through our channel exceeded the quota by 2.5x, which is enormous for any enterprise companies. They are still using it more on the employee and talent side, but the same can be worked towards a customer as well.
And so what is your licensing model when you have direct customers or get strategic partners also? How do you get paid at the end of the day? Is this by assessment, or is it an enterprise type license? How does it work?
So there are two types of models, keeping it confined to HR. So there are two aspects. As a candidate, you may do assessment once with respect to a job. It is basically starting as $1 per assessment, and it comes down to a couple of cents if the volume is very high. But there is also a platform fee if you want to compare that person to other jobs, if you want to compare that person to the team, if you want to find alternate training curriculum that would suit that person's personality, if you want to find the incentive program that would work for that person. All of these are platform play. So there is a flat platform fee. It's again starting at $99 for up to 100 people, where you can do all of these mix and match, find all the outcomes. So without putting a dent in your pocket, for 100 people, you're looking at less than $200 per month.
That's a bargain compared to the cost of making a hiring mistake or decision mistake in putting a wrong team together, etc.
Absolutely. And I think the key part here is not even that part. There are some assessments that would cost you about $150 to $200 per assessment. Forget about the analytics on top of it, right? So where we come from is the aspect of bringing more data to every person who can then make informed decisions, versus bringing data to only a few elites who have the luxury to pay money. To us, that normalcy has to be brought in place, both from the candidate as well as the employer's perspective, so that this becomes like a no-brainer. Some of these tests that are considered as the golden standard actually were created back in 1900, early part of 1900, and this was primarily for identifying people who can go into a war and still have the personality to deal with any uncertain circumstance which are completely out of whack. And this was done as an example. One of the popular ones I'll give you the example is Myers-Briggs. This is a very popular one used in the industry for more than, I would say, 70, 80 years. The way they had built was the aspect of identifying people who can go into a war. This was devised primarily for the US government military. And for that, they had picked up Caucasians, ages between 25 to 40, who basically went through this test and they said, okay, these are the traits that we should look for. Nobody questions that was done with a small set, 25 to 40 Caucasians. It may not apply for the rest of the world, right? People just blindly follow because it was used by the US government. But there is so much of disparity and misunderstanding of how to use the assessment, which goes into the aspect of how do you take that into business outcomes, which never pan out to what you think.
Right, it's amazing, right? Some of these old models we still just follow blindly without challenging them in the current context where we're living in a different world.
There is a valid reason, because there is quite a bit of research that has been done on top of it, journal papers being published. So it takes a while. Psychological models indeed take a lot of time. Humans in general are very hard to understand, but the aspect of combining it with machines, it accelerates the process of finding the pattern, which are very difficult with a human, which take generations.
So what's the way forward for you?
I think the way forward for us is, as we come out of this, our perspective is always answer what's in for me. And because we are focusing more on the HR industry, we are trying to focus what's in for me for a candidate looking for a job, which is making sure that we can help them find the right jobs, help them find their strengths. If there are gaps, how do you mitigate the gaps so that they are well positioned for the position that they are applying? For the employees, we try to take the same approach. How do I help the employee grow their career faster, find the right mentor, identify the synergy with their managers or team members that can help them position themselves better? And from the employer's perspective, how do you automate the entire process, finding the right person who can be in the right place, be productive, be with you for a longer time? So if I can answer those intrinsic questions, we keep harping on that every day, day in, day out. All the features get distilled to few that really matters to the enterprise. And that's what we've been focusing, and that's what we would be focusing as we progress. And definitely there would be the aspect of automation that would come in, connecting with more ETS systems, more HRIMS systems, so that this can be very pervasive. But the core would be the same, understanding humans and understanding in a way which is unbiased in nature.
And it's an amazing model. I mean, mean, as we said earlier, taking a minute of your time to get a profile in a very unbiased way for a very attractive price point. It's a very interesting and attractive proposition, I would think. Where are you in your fundraising journey?
I think it has been pretty interesting. So last time we spoke, we were fortunate to raise the funds from Net1 System, which was a part of Japanese venture when we were at Plug and Play. From there, we pretty much had been very lean in terms of conserving the cash and making sure that you spend where it's absolutely required. So from the get-go, even before the COVID hit, from the time we got the money, we've been extremely cautious in how we spend. And that has really helped us to not only lengthen the time in terms of the runway, but also create some strategic partnership which need a lot of runway before it picks up. And once it picks up, there is no looking back. That planning has really worked out well for us, and especially it's working out better where now we don't have to worry about laying off anybody because we knew exactly what we are getting into. We went with the planning that things are going to go absolutely south. How do you plan for it and make sure that you still have a lot of oxygen to grow and thrive? As a startup, you always look for the best opportunity to conserve the cash, look for funds where you don't have to dilute the equity but still get enough money to cut down the operational costs. So we've been very fortunate to get some of the funding from Google as an example. They've been sponsoring our GCP for the past, I would say, 4 years, and they even extended some part of it as a part of the COVID crisis, which really keeps down the VM cost, which is a big part of software as a service. Similarly, been very prudent in terms of picking some of the talent that can do multiple things, not just one. That way, as we see some slowdown, they are now shifting the focus into more product features and building the features versus delivering and managing the customer. So they were managing both sides of the spectrum as an example. It's a double-edged sword because you can't scale up from that perspective, but we knew that unless until we don't see the ramp up from the partners, we didn't want to just hire people for the sake of hiring. So that has really helped us from the investment perspective. Coming back to investment, we were fortunate to basically conserve the cash, increase the runway, extend the partnership, and recently we were fortunate to, as we got into these commercial contracts, now we knew that we have to expand quickly, and I didn't want to just burn the existing cash. I would rather go out and get a smaller seed round so that it can be invested towards ramping up the team. As we get the commercial contract ends, increase the ARR, that becomes a lot easier task for me to then raise a lot bigger check without diluting the company. So that's a strategy that we have been adopting. We've been very fortunate in the past, I would say 3 months we've been out in terms of the investment. We were fortunate to get a part of the investment through a micro fund. Recently, we closed around 3 weeks ago, and this was with a micro fund from BGV. BGV is a very popular VC in Bay Area. They, along with Emergent VC and Bloom VC, all of them have co-created a micro fund. They have come in recently. We also have the family members of Alpha Media, which is one of the largest toy manufacturers in China. They basically, as an example, when Toys R Us went to China, they had to partner with Alpha Media to sell the toys in China. So they are one of the largest manufacturers of toys in the world. They also came in as a part of the seed round. Still going out and looking for opportunities, but this gives us enough cushion not to worry about running out of fuel as we are ramping up some of these critical initiatives.
Is there anything else you'd like to throw in?
No, I think thank you for this opportunity. For all the folks who are listening to this, I think hang in there. Good luck with whatever you are planning to do in the next 6 to 8 months. As we are doing as a startup, if you focus on the signal, not the noise, you would come out of this with a lot more features, functionality, a lot more vigor, and probably you will excel in the environment going forward. So thank you for the opportunity.
Thanks very much, Ganesh.